Step right up, folks. You're now entering It's a Circus, where parenting isn't always a show-stopping act, but it's certainly entertaining. I'm your host, Elsa, here to prove that no one really knows what they're doing, and that's perfectly fine. So join me and my guests as we share stories, tips, confessions that'll have you laughing, crying, and nodding along. Let's have some real conversations, peel back the layers, and remind you that you're never alone in the madness. Let's get the show rolling. Hello, Dmitri. Welcome to It's a Circus podcast. And I have a very special guest on today. This is my husband, a special guest for our Mother Day special podcast. So thanks for joining.
Is that my intro?
That's your intro.
Okay. You can tell we planned this well ahead and did a lot of it. So I'm guest hosting today. Because I thought it would be fun. Well, we thought it would be fun to introduce Elsa as the host of It's a Circus. Today is the Mother's Day special. Obviously, you are the mother to our two little blondie boys.
Yep.
And very excited to have the audience kind of get your perspective in a lot more detail, because I think what you've done is amazing, but I also have told you behind the scenes, my feedback is it really, your personality is what is the driving force behind the podcast, and ultimately what I think will be the most successful part of it is because people love you, people gravitate to you, people are drawn to you, and I would just love to see that come through more in the podcast episodes. So hopefully this is the start of that.
I love it.
Without further ado, so today's episode, yes, I'm reading off a script. It might or may not have been ChatGPT written, but only pieces of it. So today's episode is really something special, something personal. This Mother's Day, I wanted to sit down with the woman who holds our family together, who has been my partner in life for since 13 years. We've been married for 6 of them. Our oldest is almost 3.5. So, the parenting journey between us has really only been about a quarter of the way. And as every parent knows, it really kind of takes over your life in a very significant way. There's a before and after parenthood. So we are not just talking about motherhood in general. We're talking about the experience, the beauty, the chaos, the growth, the humor, the heart.
The circus.
The circus, exactly. It's honest, it's real. It's a conversation that Elsa and I have kind of like every day, as I think a lot of parents do, just like, this and that, and then this and that. And so settle in. I've got some questions. So the real questions begin now.
Okay.
And they're grouped according to topics, but, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'll stop talking. The first one is, what surprised you most about becoming a mom? I love this question actually, because there's always, you're gonna struggle to hone it down to just one kind of
Oh, yeah.
answer,
I was just
but
going to say, is it everything? Is that an answer?
it's what surprised you / what didn't anyone warn you about?
That's a big one, because I feel like, one of the things that we have talked about over and over, and this is truly why I started the podcast, is because I think that I felt like, what's that phrase? Hoodwinked or something, because I had been told over and over, like, this is going to change your life, whatever. And you hear it, but to know at what level and at what layer and at what intensity, I think is just absolutely shocking. And as much as I feel like we were prepared, I also think you can't control anything with parenthood. And I think that is also comes through the experience of you can't necessarily prepare for what your child is going to be like, how those first couple weeks, months, years are. You can't really control how you are in reaction to all of that because you've just never been in that situation. So I would just say, you know, if you were to encompass everything, I think I would love to have had anybody say, you're going to be stronger because of this, and tell me this is going to be the maybe hardest thing that you're going to walk, but you've got it. I think that's what would have made me feel really good, because I think there's a lot of messaging out there like, this is really hard, it's going to change you, but there's no real like positivity behind it. And I really would have loved to have heard something like that.
I think, yeah, I obviously I agree. I think there's no kind of explaining or forewarning the parenthood journey until
Mm-hmm.
you're just in the thick of it. Like the first week home after the baby, the first month, and obviously this is only from my own experience, which is just like we don't sleep anymore.
Yeah.
And wow, I've never heard so much crying all the time in my life, which is, was until we had a toddler. But um, like the female journey specifically is 1,000 times harder than what I experienced. And I even still was like, I wish somebody would have told me that there was like a real cliff, and
Mm.
not to, maybe not the right analogy because you're not plummeting downwards after that. It is, I really struggled with, being able to just do what I wanted to do. If I was watching the
Mm-hmm.
baby and I wanted to, get something done or whatever, and I couldn't, that was so frustrating to
Mm-hmm.
me. And, I really struggled with that. I think I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten better over time, but it was like, it was really, I kind of thought like, no, the baby will adhere to my schedule and like we can still like live the lives we want to live. And I think that that's fucking bullshit. Like, it's just not all these, like, anytime you hear about a parenting journey that is like, oh yeah, we just like kind of go do whatever we want to do and the baby just comes with us. Like, I think that's maybe, and we, by the way, we like have friends that have done this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so fucking frustrating to hear. But it's a very small percentage of people that I think like can kind of do both. I think the majority of people are so exhausted. You find that the routine is everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
you are terrified to break the routine. And so
Mm-hmm.
you kind of end up in this little hole of this pocket of parenthood that is something that's really difficult to warn people about, basically.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I mean, and even like I'm thinking right now, like what would I tell somebody that's like literally asking me? Because one, I don't think I would offer this information up front and be like, whoa, get ready. It's like tough out there, but you can do it. But I do think that there is like a way to be like, oh, here are some good resources, or have you thought about postpartum? Because lots of times, especially with your first, and this was definitely our path, was like you worry about birth, like you worry about like, you know, is my body
The
strong enough to
stuff.
keep this baby alive? Yeah, then like make sure we have the right stuff. Then, this like very like long anticipation for this birth that you've never experienced, that you have to go through. And then after that, especially for me, I was like, oh, but after that, like I will figure it out. Um, and I guess it would be nice to be like, have a postpartum plan, or have a, something. And I think we did our best to have our plan. I mean, thank goodness we had support of our families, but even past that, and bigger than just having people in your space to support you, but there is that like ongoing support that I would want somebody to warn me about.
Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of gets into the community, the village, right, that has largely disappeared
Mm-hmm.
in modern day.
Yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit about, you know, how the circus relates to the village. Like
Mm-hmm.
if there is, you know, the circus is a multi-performer act.
Mm-hmm.
I think it extends outside the family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for the people that are doing it in a vacuum, like we were
Yes.
initially, you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like putting up the tent poles and
Mm-hmm.
like drawing the crowd in and then riding a unicycle on top of a, Shark Tank, juggling, cleaning, whatever's. And um, and the more time you spend with family, the more time you find friends that have kids similar age ranges of you feel the structure start to stabilize a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think for us, we moved away from our group of friends in LA. We moved away from that to go to someplace that was more family friendly, but didn't have a network of people to support us. And I think both you and I, and especially me, I mean, I've moved around a ton. So the move didn't scare me, and to think that we couldn't find friends didn't scare me. But when you layer in, you're pregnant, or that you have a newborn at home, or you're so many months postpartum, that is a very like time where you're healing, where you're rediscovering yourself, where you feel weird in your body, like all that kind of stuff. That doesn't happen with strangers. That really is something that should happen with your support system. And so the reason for It's a Circus podcast and the Turner Brothers Circus is truly just that, is to offer support from whatever depth you want. If you just want to hear great stories, or if you want to start connecting with people, it's because I find value in that today, right now. So much comfort in finding other moms or talking to other families, but I would have really benefited from a group or a support of people, especially in those like initial first couple months or within that first year. And I mean, we've talked about this before, and I think it's fine to share. Ultimately, we'd love this to be like a four-wall experience too. So it's not just going to be digital, but it's like that space, whatever space means to you, that can be a place to come and connect with people that are in a similar phase of life.
And in a physical space, like
Mm-hmm.
the locality of the village,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great to talk to friends and family, but like if they can't help put the kid to bed every once in a while,
Totally.
if they can't like co-parent, so your kids can have a little play date, but like it's
Mm-hmm.
not an awkward school play date where you're meeting each other for the first time. It's
Mm-hmm.
like your friends and they also have kids, so it just feels
Mm-hmm.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's another element of this whole thing is like people parenting differently. What is their level of comfort with what food they eat and
Yeah.
like what they're allowed to, like the level of danger that they're allowed to do in their home or in a
Mm-hmm.
public space. It is so important that you can find those people basically. Like we overlooked it, honestly.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, we lived in Austin for about 2.5 years. We had the two babies back to back. We didn't know anybody, but we wanted something more family friendly. And it was like one of those trade-offs that we left our group of friends in LA to go somewhere more family friendly. But in reality, like, I mean, none of our friends had kids. So like it's not
Yeah.
like they would have really helped a lot. But um I point being is like there's just no you are my recommendation personally is like you just have
Mm-hmm.
to go to where your people are at,
Mm-hmm.
who are in a similar phase of life. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's ultimately the goal of the circus is like build that, provide that. One of the ways that some of that exists online is like, the relatable mom accounts, the
Mm-hmm.
mom Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about those kind of social, but
Mm-hmm.
not really,
Yeah.
channels that provide support
Mm-hmm.
and provide guidance, but don't, at least in my experience, but I want to hear from you. Like, how do they help either build a village or not build a village?
Right, totally. And I think that's the differentiator here because when you're in the thick of it, and I am a person that I like to know all the information. I like to look at lots of different ways to do something before I decide what I want to do. And then also, I want to decide because I'm deciding, not because somebody else is telling me to decide. And I think when you look at those social accounts, there's a lot of relatability. Like there's tons of memes that I send you a million times. I send like some of my mom friends sometimes where you're like, oh my gosh, this is great to know that we're not the only ones dealing with like this little like funny meme. But when you're wanting like a conversation or when you're wanting like the depth of something, hearing an expert tell you how to do something can feel so condescending. Or having like somebody showing, a perfect morning when you've lived the roughest morning of your life, they're so hard to look at. And I think a lot of times when you're in a tough spot, the last thing you want to see is a successful person. You'd rather find somebody that may have had a similar experience and then looking past that. And so that's again the reason that I really want to have real people that, are doing, their real life and dealing with moving through that portal of parenthood too, and what's that about? Because I think there's similarities, but there's also a lot of differences with how people manage stuff. And I think that's a really interesting aspect to listen to and hear from.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point of like the relatable stuff isn't conversation driven. It's just for entertainment purposes only. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the experts who kind of make you feel like an asshole if you give your kids more than 30 minutes of screen time at a time. And
Yeah.
it's super, like, I get it. They're kind of talking about what is best for the kid in a
Mm-hmm.
perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. But the reality is that's not what happens in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no middle ground to to either have these conversations or ask these things. I think Facebook groups kind of comes the closest, but
Mm-hmm.
the problem with those is like you get so many different opinions that like they all kind of converge in this, I don't know, racquetball esque thing where there's balls kind of flying off the walls all over the place, and it just feels crazy in there that
It is
it
crazy in
doesn't
there.
it doesn't feel helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, and I think that's like part of the idea is with both of our moves, moving to Austin and then now moving down here, is those Facebook groups are completely insane. Like they're absolutely wild. They're all over the place. There's like, teenagers, there's like people talking about their divorce, there's like people trying to sell houses. There's like somebody who's like, how do I help my kid go to sleep at night? Like it's a funny place to be, but I will tell you, I found like a lot of comfort in both of those Facebook communities, which I'm so happy that they exist out there. But again, it's not a personal connection. You're not like really, finding your tribe necessarily on these platforms. You're just kind of, seeing the array of what is out there.
Yeah, yeah. So shifting gears a little bit,
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about your identity as a mom,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I think kind of a little bit in addition to everything that we just talked about, but like really, I think is one of the elements of it's a circus. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is this identity? Who was I before, and who
Mm-hmm.
am I after?
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same person? Are they different?
Mm-hmm.
How can you kind of share your journey on your your identity, your reflection of self, in the transition period between first 0 to 1 and then 1 to 2.
Yeah, which our time between there was very short. It
Yes.
was only 14 months. But I will say, I think that alone has been my biggest challenge moving through this period of time is to self identify. And I think I started from a place of, I want to do pregnancy my way, I want to do motherhood my way. So that's very like singular. And it's also very, I would say, looking back, like kind of naive to be like, oh, well, you're telling me all this stuff, but I can do it how I want to, and I will do it my way. So I think that kind of set me up for a tougher transition because I was really fighting against change that is inevitable. And so that kind of had a lot of unnecessary friction, I feel. If I were just to surrender, which is a lot of motherhood, especially in those like early months, if you were just to surrender and kind of like let yourself lean into what's happening, knowing that, things will always get better, that would have been helpful to me. But because I was kind of like stuck in this phase of like, world, don't tell me how to mother, don't tell me how I'm going to change, I was kind of really fighting against that. So I think that was like hard. I think the other piece is I definitely am having kids later in life. So I had an established career. I had an established, path kind of I was going down. There was a dream of what I had, where I would be when I would have a child and what that would look like. And I don't think I really wasn't there. So I think that added some like unnecessary friction too into that change that you go through. So I think the identity of self as a mother, I think for me is a surrender and then a rebirth. I mean, as dramatic as it is, but like a rebirth of yourself because your body has to go through a lot of things every single month with your child, especially in those early months, is a change. You are changing everything. You're changing your patterns, your whatever. The child is changing, so you're changing along with it. So I think at this point to see the light kind of at the end of the tunnel, I think has been almost like a 2-year project. Well, 3-year project. But like after Sebi is kind of like where I count like the turning point of like feeling a little bit more stable with an anchor in the ground of like, okay, this is what I'm doing here. And a lot of that anchor comes with grace and flexibility because there's no way you can like control that.
Yeah. And it wasn't just after Sebastian was born, it was after Sebastian made it past like 18 months because that
Oh,
first year, like you're just,
totally.
the checkups, and then if they're in daycare, which ours were, like they get sick every week, and then they're coughing all night, and our kids have had nebulizer treatment since the day they were born, like basically. So it is really stressful. And I agree. I think there's like, obviously from the outside looking at you and being with you, I think there's definitely been a rebirth within the birthing process.
I know.
um, but it's been good. It's been challenging, but it's
Yeah.
been um, really cool to see. And also for those that don't know Elsa very closely, um, that like I'm gonna do it my way is one of the things we love most about her. As her partner, it can be extremely frustrating, but um, it is kind of very much at the core of like what makes you you is not just in motherhood, but in your entrepreneurship journey, in your career, in your personal life, you do things your way, and I love it.
Well, how has it been for you? Because you've also had to go through kind of a rebirth.
I wouldn't say a rebirth. I would say like maybe a and acceptance.
Mm.
So kind of what you were saying of like a little bit like, and what I mentioned earlier, where I thought that I could continue living my life the same
Mm-hmm.
way just with a baby. And
Yep.
I couldn't. Like, it's not just that I couldn't, go just take a trip and the baby comes with me. It was like the lack of sleep um, had such a profound psychological effect on me personally that
Yeah.
like I had a shorter fuse.
Mm-hmm.
I performed worse at work.
Yeah.
I, you know, spoke with friends and like shout out Halston. I think he would say that like we only really he like would mark on the calendar anytime he got to see me or us, like because it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a rare occasion, especially like throughout the pandemic. But even more so afterwards, I felt like I went inwards, and it's taken a very long time to get to a point where psychologically, emotionally, mentally have stabilized a little bit and started to just feel a lot more comfortable um, with how to process things, how to handle these situations,
Mm-hmm.
um, and what life looks like, with
Yeah.
kids. There's just been a large shift in like, yeah, I'm unavailable, or like I'm not going to be able to do these things because I
Right.
know that like our weekends are shot. I can't get any not a minute of
Yeah.
work can get done
No.
truly because we have two toddlers. They require constant attention. And like I think 2 years ago I would have been like, no, I can still figure it out, but I'm just going to get really mad that I can't figure it out and I can't get it
Mm-hmm.
done. And now I'm like, it is what it is. It's this is what parenthood looks like right now, and we're in the thick of it. And you know, we need it just builds the case all the more of like the need for people around you and local to you that can help just alleviate that little bit of pressure so that you don't kind of burst
Totally.
apart.
Yes. Or like tweak your neck so you like can't move your neck. Um, but yes, I think I think one of the things that we found, one in Austin and then two definitely here within our neighborhood and obviously with family around too is sometimes it's just like seeing another example of a family going through it. I mean, that just like feels good. In Texas we had, our neighbors who were just like, such a without them even knowing, without them even doing anything. To me, they were just like such a support to be like, oh, you guys are fun. You guys have goals. You guys have, you want to travel. You have 3 kids, but you're still, working through it. Like that, seeing that example is, so powerful. So it doesn't make you feel like you're like having the hardest time or like we're the only ones going through this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre call out that like you really feel like isolated in the parenting journey, even though billions of people have had kids before you and are having kids outside of you in the homes next door.
Totally.
But because of the nature of like just how society is, I think in America, just like you're within your four walls, you try
Yeah.
not to bother your neighbors, you deal with it on your own. And the pressure just kind of compounds as a result. And it's this really brutal um, experience of like, unless you have family that lives in the house with you, it's just on you. And there's only
Yeah.
two of you, and you're already, you know, sleep deprived and stressed
Yep.
out, and we're always hungry because we never get to eat, and like
Never.
underhydrated and all of this other stuff that it's just the end of the day you are literally just like, lay me down flat and don't talk to me and
Yeah.
I'll see you in the morning. Like, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I I have kind of a cute question here.
Oh.
I don't know if you'll have an answer to this.
Oh.
Um, if you could freeze one memory with the boys forever, what would it be?
Oh, man. Okay, so I look back on my phone, and I've said this a million times to people, but like, thank God I take pictures because there are so many moments where I'm like so exhausted. There's no way I could remember. And then when I look back, I was like, oh, that's cute. Or like, I'll be like, frustrated about something, but like, I still have to take this picture. And then I'm like, oh, thank goodness I took this picture because I can remember how cute it is. Oh, to freeze a moment, that is super tough. Um, I think the freezing of a moment, which I know this is not exactly the answer, but like there is a time of day that our babies get so pumped up and it's like right before bed, but like they themselves are like hilarious together. They're obsessed with each other. They do all these really funny things and then they wrestle with you. It's just that's probably like the best, most hilarious times.
Yeah, it's like if two bobblehead dolls came to life and they were each 2 feet tall and wanted nothing more than to just smack each other around. That's what that that's what 6 to 6:30 is in our house every night.
Yeah, it is.
Um, what do you want our kids to say about you when they're grown?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, when I envision what my future self is, which is like she's the hostess with the mostest, she has the best parties, she is fearless and fun and loud and does what she wants to do and stands in her power.
I don't think the kids are going to say that you stand in your power.
What do you think they're going to say?
And I don't think they're going to focus on your hosting ability. I think that they'll talk more about the fact that you have unlimited patience. It's truly something to behold.
That's nice.
And they will hopefully understand that one day, if and when they have kids of their own, um, and that obviously patience is kind of at the core of everything of love and tender care
Hmm.
and empathy. But even beyond that, you think about like what you would say about your own mom as
Yeah.
uh, as an adult. Like, I think we both feel this way about our moms that they're kind of like the epitome of like the traditional mother who is like
Totally.
will always be there and kind of a soft blanket to wrap around you when you need it, just like kind of this gentle hug that is always going to be um, a driving force in your life for how you got to be where you are and where you want to go. That's what I think that they will say about you is like that she always provided us with like the guidance we needed, um, to be the best.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I love that. A lot of experiences that can expand their thinking. I hope that, I give them a lot of space to find out who they are. And I think that is a lot of patience too, right? Like let them, explore who they are as people and provide as much opportunity for them to find that out. Um, and then, yeah, I think it definitely, I hope to always be a safe place for them and provide them good parties.
So that,
Okay, but really what I mean by that is just having like a fun, loud, loving, exciting home that they get to grow up in and remember
yeah,
like people coming over all the time and like that is the vibe.
right. My uncle has dubbed our house the party house, which I think is your most favorite thing of all time.
I mean, I couldn't be prouder.
Okay, so I have a question that, I don't think you have to relate directly back to me, but in regards to, Mother's Day, the motherhood journey, um, I don't know how many male listeners you have, but I think it's important to kind of touch on the partnership aspect and
Yeah.
your needs in that area. So, um, talk a little bit about like after experiencing these 3.5 years of
Mm-hmm.
motherhood, like as a partner, what
Mm-hmm.
do you think is the most valuable thing? What do you think you needed or continue to need the most from me, from your partner, and
Yeah. Well,
generally speaking, from the partners of moms?
yeah. Well, I think one, you already do this, so that I'll say that. I think the thing in a relationship, and one of the reasons that I think we've been together for so long, is that you do a really good job of letting me do what I want, just like the ultimate core of my being. But in better words, like you encourage growth and change in a person. The person that you met 12 years ago is definitely not the person that's like chatting to you today, but we've been able to like move through our relationship in a way where both people can kind of grow and evolve, and I think that's very important. I think when you get to this point in time, at least for me, the experience of evolution and at the pace that it needed to happen, and at kind of like the friction that I experienced of it happening, you really need space and just like, you know, loving arms. Like, you got this. I think something that I have said is just like, you're, after giving birth, you're just more sensitive. Your world is a little bit more open. I mean, the way I would explain it, like your aura is just a little bit more open. You're just a little bit more vulnerable. And so understanding that there's some sensitivities around that, I think is really important. And I don't think a
Mhm.
lot of people talk about that, like at all. Just of how, like, postpartum, and as you watch your partner evolve into their new self, you would only want to provide, the most positive experience for them to do that. So I would give that advice to any kind of partner that's watching somebody go through that evolution.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is. I don't think that's unique. I think
Yeah.
that's like a kind of across all of the parents that we know. Like there
Mm-hmm.
is certainly they've talked openly about how like obviously the shift from before and after,
Mm-hmm.
but in regards to like um, the partner journey, how things require a shift in the partnership as well. It's not
Yeah.
just like we were husband and wife before, we're husband and wife after.
Mm-hmm.
Just we just have kids now. Like as we've talked about a lot already today, like there's
Mm-hmm.
it's not just your life before and your life after just with a child. It's everything kind of moves into this much more fluid space where yeah, like I think you did um, you know, shift your vulnerability heavily and um you know I try do my best to like you know to care to that but then sometimes I'm just a jerk who forgets and so uh and I think that that's okay.
Human. Yes.
Yeah.
Just human.
So now we're going to do quick lightning round.
Love it.
One sentence or less, and we're going to try to fly through these. So I'm going to buzz you if you take too long. Okay. What's your superpower as a mom?
Ooh, superpower as a mom. I would say if I do really quick baths.
You do. That is absolutely a superpower.
It is a
You're
superpower.
going to love this one. Yeah. Poop, puke, or tantrum? What's the worst to clean up?
Ugh. Okay. Puke just is terrifying. Poop is super terrifying. And
Okay.
tantrum, I guess I would have to pick out of all of them.
No, the question was what's the worst to clean up?
Oh. Wait, out of what? Puke or poop?
Poop, puke, or tantrum?
Tantrum? How do you clean up a tantrum?
Really? Just like if it's a mess and they're
Oh,
probably like throwing stuff around.
I would pick tantrum
That
like
one's just every
all
day.
day long. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's the worst to clean up.
Oh, no, the worst would be puke.
Okay. Okay. Um, what's the first word that comes to mind when you think of motherhood?
I would say the word that's coming to mind is like duality. I think motherhood is equally as beautiful as it is not beautiful. And it's equally as fulfilling as it is frustrating. So I think it's just like with every heightened sensation, there's an equal one that happens in motherhood. And oftentimes I think it happens at the exact same time, which is very complex. And
I love that. How many times have you reheated your coffee this week?
oh, I mean, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times a day,
At least.
unless you drink it
Um,
before I get to it.
I haven't drank your coffee. That question is actually kind of bizarre because this week you've been sick, so I have not been drinking your coffee, except for the one that you just never drank.
I
So
know.
how can you reheat it if you never, if I drink it before you even can? Um, your motherhood motto in 5 words or less.
I would just say mama knows best.
Love it.
Like,
Next one.
trust your instincts and anchor down into what you know is best for your kiddos.
What's your favorite 3 minute escape?
Probably
Scrolling?
scrolling. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, loud house or quiet house? What's worse?
What's worse? Oh, God. Ooh. I guess it depends on the time of day.
Most used, most used phrase in your mom life.
Oh, God.
Oh God. Oh
Which I
God.
did not know I would be using that all the time, but I literally say it because these kiddos are, breaking things, running into each other, running into us. And apparently, the phrase I use all the time is, oh God, because our little one now says it over and over and over again. And I'm very embarrassed.
Oh God. It's the funniest thing ever. Like
Oh,
one value you want to instill in our kids.
I think probably a sense of possibility. Just that there's, always a better day ahead. There's always a different path that you can take. Just that there's possibilities no matter what.
Okay, and the last one, fill in the blank. Motherhood is blank.
Um, Motherhood is a circus.
No,
Yes.
I didn't even plan that. Okay, wow. Okay, those are all my questions. I think to kind of close it out, there's a million things I could say, but here's the truth. Watching you be a mother is the greatest love story I've seen. You do the impossible every day and somehow still make it look like art. Thank you for your heart, your humor, and your love to the woman behind.
Mm, thanks. I'm gonna cry
And
now.
this concludes the guest episode of It's a Circus, featuring me, your husband.
Amazing. I love it. Good job, baby.
Do you want to do an outro?
Yeah, it's Mother's Day, and I think Mother's Day is, as is motherhood, can be very complex and bring up lots of different types of feelings. I just hope that everybody takes time today to honor those that have felt that you've been mothered by, whether it's your biological mom or somebody else. And then people that are demonstrating mothering or supporting mothering at any capacity and in any gender, however it looks, take some time to celebrate today because that type of caregiving is on another level. And I'm happy
Yes.
that we get to and I'm happy that we get to talk about it, which has been such a gift of starting this podcast, is able to connect with mamas that have so much to share. And I think it's just a reminder that everybody is walking their own path, but there's so many similarities with the difficulty, with the challenges. It's pretty incredible. So, amazing job, mamas. and all the people that are out there mothering. And we need you. Okay, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thanks for listening to It's a Circus. If today's episode made you feel a little less alone, share it with a friend who might need it too. We are building something amazing at the Turner Brothers Circus, an entire space designed for parents to find connection, laughter, and support. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Remember, you're doing better than you think. Stay grounded, stay real, and embrace that beautiful mess. And as always, the show must go on. Until next time.